The Weekly Harvest, an in-depth look at the Brandon Wheat Kings and the WHL.
Washman trying to come up with it for Allison. Here's Allison right in front. He scores!
Brandon Junior hockey fans, you've waited 2 decades for this. In the league's 50th anniversary, your Wheat Kings are the champions.
Well, hello once again. Welcome to episode 34 of the Weekly Harvest podcast, presented by Coors Light, the official beer of the Brandon Wheat Kings. My name is Chris Falko, the in-arena voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings, director of game day operations, community relations. He's the radio voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings, Brandon Crowe. Crowe, how are you, bud?
I'm great. It's another day. It's snowing a little bit. Feels a little more like Christmas. We're getting a little closer to the holidays. I know it's a little different than normal. But it's kind of nice this time of year. You get some Christmas bacon around the house, and not baking around the house. Wait, you can have bacon.
Yeah, Christmas bacon. Fantastic.
I mean, you could. But you got the decorations up and the lights, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good and looking forward to getting to the new year and kind of moving on from 2020.
I think everybody is, but at the same time, when January 1st rolls around, it's not as if everything is just going to be awesome, right? Yep. Like there's still going to be some time, but everything is at least in gear where it is going to be a much better year, hopefully overall, when we look back on it than 2020 was.
Yes. Let's hope it's a fresh start for everybody.
And the whole using 2020 as like a new insult or a new reference for how bad something is going to be. I think that's going to be a legitimate thing going forward. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I can totally see that being a new thing in society.
It's one of those things where I didn't really notice it at first, but as the summer and fall and now into winters come along, whenever something bad happens with somebody or you see it on social media and they're like, man, 2020, am I right? And they get the question marks going and you kind of think about it and go, geez, really? Yeah. You know what? Yeah, a lot of things have piled up. And maybe, you know what? Maybe other years there's been some negative things and you just don't really notice it. But this year, boy, it really seems to pile up. But before we forget, we want to thank our newest podcast sponsor, Coors Light. I'm sure a lot of people have been getting through the pandemic with the help of Coors Light. They are the official beer provider of the Brandon Wheat Kings and the official beer in the arena, and we want to thank them for their partnership. But again, as always, we want to remind you to enjoy responsibly whenever you do crack open a nice silver bullet. So special thanks to Coors Light for joining us on the Weekly Harvest.
And 2020, as it does get better with the podcast returning, thanks to Coors Light and the release of those new Wheat King jerseys, which in a little bit in the podcast, we're going to get to announce the winner of the contest, which again, I want to talk about that contest and how well that took off as well. The reception when teams release new jerseys, new logos, new mascot, new anything for the fan base. There's a lot of times where it can be home run, but there's always some naysayers. And then people outside the fan base, no matter what you do, they always want to criticize. They always want to say, I don't like it. When you look at the reception for the new Wheat King jerseys, and I've looked through hundreds, I have yet to see one negative one. All the away fan bases just loving the new look. Personally, this might be my favorite jersey that the Wheat Kings will ever wear, just with what it represents and how it looks. But if you have not seen it yet, and you consider yourself a Wheat King fan, you're listening to the podcast. I'm assuming if you listen to this podcast, you've for sure seen the new jerseys. But the reception's been phenomenal. And the contest that we ran for people to win a free jersey, it's gotten some of the most reaction online of any of our posts. The retweets are out of control, and people having a lot of fun with it. Crowe, what do you think about all those names popping up with the question on it, which was, if you could pick one Wheat King to play one more game, the idea kind of was in that nice new jersey, who would it be? And the answers for me were just awesome, just stories.
And it went like not just one generation. It went back, back into the 70s, late 60s, right up to, a couple years ago with Nolan Patrick. So it really spanned a broad generation of fans. And I was telling you guys, my phone is connected to the team's social media because on the road, I usually handle some tweets and some Instagram and that sort of thing. But they usually just kind of lay dormant in my phone. I don't ever really go on it in the off season or anything like that. But for whatever reason, my notifications were on. Well, you guys tweeted that out and put it on Instagram. All of a sudden, my phone was going off like an earthquake, just buzz, 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 like just vibrating off the table. I couldn't figure out what was going on, but it was everybody replying to both Twitter and Instagram. Man, people from all over, all ages, men, women, kids. It was awesome to see. And it was kind of cool too, like to get the response from the jerseys. I know I had other broadcasters, so Fraser Rogers with Prince George. They've rebranded a couple of times. He texted me and said, bang up job. Great job with the jerseys. They're excellent. A couple other guys from around the league texted me. I know one of the guys in the communications department for the Winnipeg Jets texted me and said, you nailed it. Great job. You guys did great. I didn't take any credit for it. I had nothing to do with it, but a lot of people like it and a lot of fans like it. And I can say, when the year goes on and Scooter, the equipment manager, is talking about, the design process and everything, I didn't realize how long it actually takes and how many different concepts you go through to get to the final one. I don't know what the exact number is, but it's well over a dozen probably different concepts that were thrown out there and batted back and forth between the organization and CCM and the league and everything. And whatever they settled on, fans, again, they're either going to love it, they're going to hate it, but it seems to be a gold star winner chicken dinner. Everyone seems to love it.
This jersey was about 3 years in the making. It was a long time, and I was not part of the process either. Just kind of also, seeing it from afar. The most I saw was when they would send a couple emails, and I love this part, when it would have like 6 or 7 different examples and be like, hey, what do you like? And they're kind of whittling it down, writing all the different options. But when it came down to the final pick, I think it was unanimous, even just looking at it on the screen, that everybody was so excited to have the wheat sheets back. I mean, for any Wheat King, true fan, they know what the wheat sheets mean, and just how special that is. And so to get them back on the jerseys, that alone, and that's why the last tease was that going across the bottom bar, and just when you start to see the wheat fade out, and again that first comment on Facebook, good Lord, the wheat is back, just kind of summed it up. So reception was awesome, but later on in the show here, we are going to be making the draw for that free jersey, which has like 600 some names in it, I think. So, but good luck to everybody as that comes on up. We got ourselves a busy show though. Also, before we get too far, Crowe, want to talk about and thank everybody who came on out last Friday for the Wheat King Teddy Bear Toss drive-through, presented by Precision Toyota. Toyota set us up with the vehicles. CNC Rentals gave us the trailer. Thanks to Rona, we had all the lights. We had the decorations. We had music, thanks to Trident Music. We raised about $1,300 in cash in the 3 hours, and we filled the trailer with donations. So I want to say thank you to PJ Crane and Crane Steel. Want to say thank you to Western Financial Group. I want to say thank you to Tim Hortons for just keeping us warm. They had some coffee and donuts, so that was much appreciated as well. And everybody, there was such a community outpouring, and for what it was, 3 hours, I wish we could have done it the week before, to be honest, when it was a whole lot warmer. It was a very cold 3 hours, but it was well worth it. I'm glad that we got to do some sort of the Teddy toss, and did at least some kind of good this year. And the giving spirit of Westman, it just continues to impress as another great event for United Way.
And a number of teams too. I don't know if you guys talked about it at a team level, but I know Saskatoon, they had a really, really good teddy bear drive-through. The Portland Winterhawks did one out west as well, and a couple other teams out in Ontario. And I saw a few teams around doing a similar idea. Great idea. Tip of the cap to you guys. I was hoping I could make it. And when I realized the temperature, I was going to text you and say, you know what? This will be the only time I ever want to wear the Willie suit, because it'll be the only suit that's warm enough for me to stand out in the parking lot. But I wasn't going to make it.
Willie was the most comfortable one out there for sure. Yeah.
Oh, 100% he would have been. Yeah. I do want to poke fun at the new staffer, though, on the Wheat King staff. Katie, she tweeted out a picture of her standing there wearing a toque and a scarf, saying, if you're wondering how I'm dealing with Manitoba winters. And I wanted to reply and say, you haven't even seen a winter in the slightest. It is like minus 13 in the parking lot of the Keystone Center right now. The wind isn't even howling. you just wait, lady. You just wait. It's going to get a lot worse.
We noticed that tweet about 10 minutes after she sent it and said the same thing to her in person. It's like minus
just
20
you wait,
something.
Katie.
Just hold on.
It's going to hit you, and you're going to wonder why you ever left southern Alberta to come to Brandon when you can't get into your car because it's frozen shut and there's 3 feet of snow up against the door. But nonetheless, we had some great news in the jerseys and the teddy bear toss. Then we had some kind of sad news, disappointing news, albeit not probably shocking to many people. Earlier on in the week, the Western Hockey League announcing they are delaying the start of the regular season. They are not putting a date on it now. They've done that a couple of times, and not to say they've been burned, but it's just hard when you set a date, people get excited, then you have to cancel it. It's happened a couple times. So basically, the way it's working now is that the Board of Governors, the Commissioner, and the public health regions in all the provinces and all the states are going to work together. They've been working together this whole time, and they're going to meet again in January to try and come up with a plan. The one thing I did notice that Ron Robison, both in the press release and when he joined the Western Hockey League podcast a couple of days later, he just kept repeating the fact that the main focus of the Western Hockey League is on the safety of the players, coaches, staff, and the fans. So I know it's sad and people were looking forward to getting things going in the new year, but it's probably not shocking. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. It's unfortunate, but who knows? We'll get through the new year. We'll get through this Christmas break and we'll see what happens in January. But that's kind of the sad news from last week.
Sad, but like you said, not unexpected. Especially considering you hope that over the Christmas break here that all the numbers continue to be going lower and lower as they are as of late. That people take the code red seriously. But this is why after the Christmas break, grade 7 and up is mandatory going from homeschooling as well for 2 weeks. So I know I'll be dealing with that. As you may hear in the background right now, I've got a couple of guys making noise. Hey, guys making noise in the background. Thank you.
Hey, that's our fan club right there.
It's
Briar
our fan
and Jude,
club, but they are
here every week.
So, this dealing with kids at home, at certain
Good
times,
luck.
as you do that without, yeah, exactly. School is out now for Christmas break, and this is the reality now for a number of weeks. But, we're not going anywhere. We're not going to be seeing anybody. We're just going to be maintaining and doing what we're doing, going ice fishing, doing skating, keeping literally within our household bubble, keeping the numbers low. And then hopefully, you're right. Early in the new year, we can get back to it. At this point, can't control it. Not sure what else to do besides try and stay positive. And it was so nice to have that community event, just to kind of see people again and just trying to get that spirit. And, and seeing people even just, again, through their window driving by, just being like, thanks for doing this. Hopefully we'll see you guys in the new year. They want to be doing it at a game. But, once we do get back, it's going to be that sense of healing for the community as well. Not to just jump all over this podcast here, but I had another thought just going back. It's the podcast. I want to break it down because you asked and said, I'm sure in the office we talked about what other teams have done for their teddy bear toss this year with everything going on. Of course, I mean, we're always looking at what other teams are doing. We're following their social media, staying in touch with them. A lot of them are friends as well across the league, so always just kind of in touch. But what the initial plan was and this got denied by both the police and public health. But what I wanted to do was the weekend before, the really nice weekend, I wanted to do the same thing, but we had a parade route planned that we were going to drive through all the residential areas in Brandon across a Saturday.
Oh, right.
So the idea was going to be the teddy bear toss comes to you. So again, we knew people were at home. We didn't want them to leave their home except to maybe walk out, a block or two and, do their donation on the side or just wave and say hi to Willie. So that was the initial idea, but they said you can't do any kind of driving around collection. It had to be a place where people came and congregated instead of us going out. So said okay, but it kind of changed all the plans, which then made it a week later and a whole lot colder. But that is how it all kind of came about. So now that's over, and we got the nice big donation for United Way. The season's pushed back. I know a lot of our effort in the office now, at least for me, kind of switches to esports, as that NHL tournament is going to be kicking off right after Christmas. And we just had the first pre-tournament league end last night in a thrilling game. So some of these esports games, these guys are getting right into it. It's been a lot of fun. They got some good streamers like we talked about last week. So I'm really excited for this to help fill that gap, because it starts January 2nd. So yes, it's video game hockey, but you got guys from across right now, Western Canada, even some guys from Ontario, Quebec. Don't think we have any East Coasters yet, but we got a few guys from out east. But again, they got to play as a CHL franchise. So if you watch any of these streams, you're going to see a whole bunch of WHL fan bases in particular playing each other with their favorite teams. It's going to at least be something. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So look out for the Wheat Kings social media in January as all that starts.
Are you I got to ask on a completely different topic, but I just saw this now. Are you a sports bettor? Like, do you bet on pro lines or anything like that when it comes to NHL or NFL?
Yeah. You go to, I know, on Play Now, completely legal, but that's the government site, right? Yeah, you go to Play Now. Yeah, I got a subscription there, and
so
not like a big bettor, but I do like to play some $1 parlays and bet on 12, 14 games throughout the weekend. Never won, but you win one time and it's a pretty big win. So, but yeah, definitely.
So a guy today in New Jersey, he placed a $100 bet back in September that the New York Jets would win their first game of the season in Week 15, which is this week in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the Jets hadn't won all season long. And today they beat the 9-4 Rams 23-20 for their first win of the season. That guy that put a $100 bet on there just made $12,000 off that bet. Just threw it into the pot and walked out with $12,000 off FanDuel.
Wow.
I'm not a big bettor just because I don't like taking the risk, but that's a funny story in itself. The Jets winning today against a really good Rams team, and the Jets are no longer in contention for the first overall pick. They are still, but right now it flips Jacksonville as the first overall pick. So if you're a New York Jets fan, you win, but you didn't want to.
And for that guy to have $100 to throw on that kind of bet, you can only imagine how many other frivolous bets he has $100 on and how much money is tied up. That kind of stuff I would not do. But a couple bucks to win a couple hundred, then, that's maybe more my style, but that guy's thinking big. Good for him. I love some of that. Again, completely off topic, but whatever. I mean, there's no hockey, so let's talk about it. Did you see Charlie Woods and Tiger Woods? Just a general sports story? Holy man.
You know what? I haven't been home. I've been working, but I've been following it on social media.
I love it.
That kid's unreal.
I would watch, now that all this is going on and then you guys stay in your household, let's get all of the father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, mother-daughter combos, the LPGA, the PGA. I love that concept. It was, I saw it on social media and then I could not find it on my TV quick enough. So I found another means, a shadier means online, but I found a way to start watching, and I was like, this is, I was right into it. I thought that was fantastic. If people didn't know, they had father-sons playing, and it was best ball, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
And that kid at 11, I think he's 11. His swing is identical. There was a Fox video on the range of Tiger and his son Charlie side by side, identical swing.
He hit a 5-wood within 3 foot of the hole, and he tapped it in for eagle. It was fantastic. And he's even got his dad's fist pump. He did that on one of the putts. Anyway, Charlie Woods, up and comer. He's already my new favorite golfer, so I can't wait to own Charlie Woods 2034 on the PS6.
I might throw a bet on it that he'll win the Masters in 2032.
FanDuel, that's got to be on there right now. We got to go and start putting all these $1 bets on Charlie Woods to start cleaning up. Absolutely. Our guest this week, we have got a guy who I know across junior hockey, a lot of respect goes to this man, especially when it comes to the NFL draft rankings, to the NHL draft rankings.
He could probably do the NFL too. He could
probably do the NFL too. But I can only imagine, though, how much, how much work goes into when he builds these lists. But there's all this hype around when Button's list is going to be coming out. So from TSN, Craig Button, very excited to have him on tonight here, Crowe.
Yeah, he was a good get. I appreciate Brian Munns from TSN. We've had him on the pod. I reached out to him and said, hey, could you send me the contact info for Craig Button? He said, no problem. I'll text him, let him know. I reached out to him. He was super good about it. My email to him went to his spam mail, which doesn't surprise me. So he actually forgot about our interview, but I texted him right away and he quickly scrambled, got back to his computer, set it up, and gave us way more time than I thought he would. So it's a really good interview. I think people are going to enjoy it. I tweeted it out yesterday, and I got a lot of good feedback. People are really looking forward to this episode. So as we head into the Christmas break, Craig Button, it is, for those of you that are listening this week, it was recorded last week. So there may be some conversation that just seems not dated, but he may mention days of the week that might throw you off a little bit. So just a reminder, it was pre-recorded last Wednesday. So
and if people are watching as well, they're going to notice that our clothes are going to just suddenly change here as well once the interview starts.
So anyway, it's going to be great. And once again, we want to thank Coors Light for making it all happen, the official beer partner of the Brandon Wheat Kings. And once again, this holiday season, if you are enjoying a Coors Light beverage, do so responsibly. Don't drink and drive.
Now, before we actually get into the interview, just a couple of things. Speaking of Brian Munns, he's one of a couple emails that we did get at the qweeklyharvest@gmail.com. And a reminder, so if people wanted to email us, as I put that up on the screen right there, qweeklyharvest@gmail.com. Brian Munns sent in a question for Don that we kind of missed for last week's. He said, did your golf game improve this summer? Hope you fellas are well. Now, Brian, I did actually ask Don that when I got that email when he came through the office one day, and he just big smile and said, yes, Munzie, yes. So his golf game did get better. And while we're doing emails, got an email here from Chad. Chad says, not sure if you're going to continue on with interviews of past players, but if you could, love to get Peter Schaefer, my favorite player back in the 90s, such a skilled player. That and Randy Ponte, another one I'd love to hear an interview with. Old-time hockey, such a fun guy to watch. Glad to see the podcast is back. So thanks for that email, Chad. Both guys, I think that we would love to talk to you on here. So we're going to add that to the list as well. But coming up this week, like we said, we got TSN's Craig Button, after which we're going to come back for a few minutes and have the winning name for the jersey giveaway. But right now, TSN, Craig Button.
Well, our guest this week is a guy that most of you know quite well because he's been on TV for a number of years, and he's been a big part of the TSN World Junior coverage and draft coverage for a number of years. Of course, he started in the game a long time ago and has held many hats and many job titles. TSN's Craig Button. Craig, thanks for taking time to join us this week on the Weekly Harvest podcast.
No, a pleasure for me to join you guys. Hockey runs through every corner of our country, and to share some thoughts about the World Junior and the players at this time of the year, this is a great thrill for me to be joining you guys.
Now, Craig, there has been a lot of Wheat King greats that have come up through the junior ranks that you would have tracked, you would have followed, that I'm sure we're going to start to talk about. But right off the bat, of course, the one that everybody's talking about is the current Wheat King that is in camp. So let's talk by talking about Braden Schneider before we get into anything. What are some of your thoughts about Braden Schneider as a player?
Well, so I'll take you back in time a little bit. So I've watched Braden for over 3 years, and the first time I saw Braden was as a 15-year-old. And I mean, he was a rugged, competitive player at that age, and he's no less so at his current age. But I remember at a U17 camp in Calgary, he thoroughly blew up an opponent in a scrimmage. And it wasn't a scrimmage, it was a game as they identify the players. And, it was like, I mean, if he wanted to capture your attention, he knew how to do it. But he could capture my attention. The poor player he hit had his attention caught in a whole different way, because, players are coming in and they're dangling and they think they have all these fancy moves and everything. And Brandon he blew him up. And, I knew that he was a first round pick. I knew, because I, talked to Kelly McCrimmon, and, I know the background and what a good player he was and what a good prospect. And what I would tell you is since that time, all he has done is been true to his identity as a real competitive territorial defenseman, but he's continuously improved. I mean, he's a player that's taken his skating up a level, which is necessary if you want to play in the NHL and play at a high level. His opportunity to make plays with the puck. I mean, he does all those things in the game that are really significant, not only in terms of being rugged and physical and territorial and deeply competitive. He jumps into the attack. He makes really good plays with the puck in all areas of the game. He shoots the puck. I think, and I joked about this when I was doing the draft for NBC, when they announced that they'd made the trade and they selected Braden Schneider. And David Quinn, who's a longtime good friend of mine, and I got lots of friends with the Rangers, and I said, Ranger fans, you're not going to like this pick. And Bob McKenzie kind of gave me a look, and he was wondering where I was going. I said, well, he's really competitive. He hates every opponent he plays against. He's going to be physical and rugged and, bring people that hate every other team that plays the Rangers out of their seats. So David Quinn sends me a note. He goes, we're listening to you, going, oh, my God, what's he going to say? And then we all started laughing. And so, Braden is a player I want on my team. I don't want to play against him. I want him on my team because Braden is that player that is no fun to play against if you're lining up against him, because every inch of ice you want, every second of time you're trying to earn, he's trying to take it away from you.
Is there a player maybe currently or a guy that maybe from the past that you would compare him to in the NHL?
Well, I know that his dad loved Scott Stevens, and and Scott, I mean, you talk about blowing up players. I mean, Scott was unbelievable, but so I mean, from a physical standpoint, the game is very different than when Scott played, and from a physical point of view. But when and ironically, one of the players that I thought was ironic in the sense that he plays for the Rangers, that Braden reminded me a lot of, was Jacob Trouba. Jacob is territorial, and there was a lot of, I shouldn't say question marks about Jacob, but Jacob just continuously progressed his game in all the critical areas. And you look at what he did in Winnipeg. You now look at what they're counting on from him with the New York Rangers, and so now Braden gets to go to an organization that has a similar type player, and I think that not only can he look at how Jacob plays the game, but can also learn from him and have Jacob as a little bit of a mentor. And Jacob's only 7 years older than Braden, but that can seem like an eternity when you're trying to break into the NHL, and you got somebody like Jacob Trouba that's got 7 years under his belt. So,
Craig, when we ask you a question like that about Braden, and right away you go back to, well, I remember seeing him as a 15-year-old, and how many players now you can say that. How meticulous are your notes? It must be absolutely insane how you track these players over the years, because I know working in junior hockey, like waiting for your draft rankings is always kind of a big day. Kind of like to see where the guys land. I can't imagine how many games you would see in a year, and how meticulous per game your notes would be to track these players.
Well, I mean, I have the great fortune of going around the country and the world and watching players at different ages, and so I get the opportunity to watch them at 15 and 16. So, I'm just pulling out just a little notebook here that I have in
hockey's holy Bible right there, right? Look at that thing.
Well,
gold leaf pages.
That's just a little glimpse of my notes from a game last year at Wisconsin with Minnesota Duluth. So I'm glad somewhere along the line, I think you've seen my notes. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. On the anybody watching on the
Wyatt Kalnick
or on
good
the YouTube version, they will be able to see this. For the audio podcast, just Craig is actually holding up and giving us an insight into his actual notes on the game that he's watching. Now, Craig, I know that obviously technology.
So I keep notes just to ask your question, Chris. But I got to keep notes.
Yeah.
I like my memory is good, but sometimes it escapes me, and so I try to make sure that I'm able to. keep and go back and look and say, okay, here's what I saw. Because players are progressing all the time. And so I'm trying to build, when I'm watching players, I'm trying to build what I call a dossier on them. Scouting and evaluation is never static. It's about watching them and going, okay, yeah, I was right about that. Okay, he's better than I thought in this area. Still needs a little bit of improvement in that area. And you just keep going back. And by having notes, you can go back and go, okay, did I see that before? Oh, yeah, I did see that. Or did I see that before? No, but I had a question on it. So, for me, it's important in my own methodology to keep those notes.
So talk to us about how the process was for you to get into this bubble. Now, we can kind of see behind you, for those that are watching, you got, it looks like a treadmill or maybe your bike back there and some TV equipment. And now you're kind of locked into your hotel room there in Edmonton. What's the process when you got there? Were you tested? How were you tested? Just go through today's day for Craig Button getting into the bubble.
Well, I did bring a bike because, the gyms are all closed. So I did bring a bike that's in my room. You do see television equipment, so we're set up remotely. So I did a piece today on That's Hockey. I'll do another one tomorrow. We got to be prepared for anything. We've been working from home. Those are my Christmas lights that I hung up around around the room. So, we're going to be here for 22 days, and you want to find some creature comforts. And when you've been at home as long as all of us have been, you really start to enjoy those creature comforts. But with respect to coming into Edmonton, we had to have 3 negative tests in 5 days before we were cleared for travel to Edmonton. So you needed the negative test. Now you come into Edmonton. I arrived here on Tuesday, December 15th. And so I go through a test right away, and then 4 more tests negative before being released into the bubble. And if you don't have those negative tests, you don't get released into the bubble. So and that's the same for the teams and everybody. And that's why when Bob Nicholson, the chairman of the Oilers Entertainment Group, and former head of Hockey Canada, the NHL didn't have a manual when they had their return to play. They were talking to the health experts and trying to come up with a plan. Well, it ended up being flawless. Well, the World Junior, Hockey Canada, the Edmonton organizers have a manual. And Bob said it best. He said, if we do all the things that we need to do prior to coming into the bubble, once you get into the bubble safe, we got you. And I think that should give everybody a lot of confidence because, with the NHL, when it started, you're happy that they started and then you hope they would finish. And I think that the World Junior Tournament is headed towards the exact same result.
So is that something that you asked the hotel to provide you, is the bike, or did you have to somehow arrange to get that there? Is that just like a common thing that everybody in the bubble is ordering because you got to plan ahead for those amount of days?
Well, I did look into it, okay, and I did look into it and talk to some people. Now, I'm in Calgary, so I drove up to Edmonton. So once I realized that renting, I'll tell you what ended up happening. I looked to rent. I'm a member of Good Life Fitness, so I talked to them about potentially renting one. And I thought the prices were very reasonable, but then there's delivery, right? And then there's delivery of when you need it. And so before Alberta shut down, they weren't sure about, there was bikes that weren't being used, and then we had to have it in there. So ultimately what I did was I went and looked and bought a bike. I bought a stationary bike. And so I assembled it when I arrived on Tuesday night. And I mean, it's a good Nautilus bike. I'm going to keep it, and it'll sit in my home now. So, but I needed some measure of exercise because, I mean, nobody's allowed to go outside. You can't go for a walk. You have to stay in the bubble. And if you leave the bubble, you're in trouble. I don't know if you heard, but one of the managers of the Swedish team, when I say manager, somebody that's managing their affairs, it had to leave because he stepped out of the hotel to go to the airport to go and pick up luggage. And when he returned to the hotel, they said to him, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm here with Team Sweden. They go, you just left. You're done. you're out. His
Well,
stuff
makes
was still in
sense.
his hotel room. He's not allowed back in the hotel.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, you have to keep the guy safe, and
It's locked down, and like it was innocent, right? And you know, he wasn't trying to be malicious. He wasn't trying to, you know, cut a corner. I got to go get the equipment. It's at the airport, and you know, you don't even. And Sweden has been in very different protocols than we have been in Canada, so it's understandable why I know I got to do tests. What's the big deal? But that's how tight it is. It's really, really tight, and that it won't be any less tight as time goes on.
Just for like a throwback joke, being a Sens fan and old TSN coverage, seeing you and the background there, the bike and the camera and the setup, I really wish that you could combine them somehow and then get the classic interview on the bike just to kind of get across.
Tune in to TSN on Friday. I think you might get your wish.
Classic.
That's awesome, Craig. Yeah. I was growing up. I was a Manitoba boy, so obviously, I mean, I'm not old enough to really remember the original Jets, but obviously they were a part of my childhood. I got some jerseys and posters and things like that. But my first real favorite team, aside from Winnipeg, was the Dallas Stars, and that's because my dad went on a business trip one time down to Dallas and picked me up. He went to a game between Dallas and Toronto. This was in about 98 or 99, and brought me back a hat and a mini stick and whatever else that a young kid would want. And obviously Ed Belfour, I was a goalie. He was from Manitoba. And that's where I was so excited to when you said you'd come on, because I wanted to ask you about your time in Dallas and everything that went into that. I mean, you look at that team, you look at some of the stars on that team and the goaltender, Eddie Belfour. Obviously, from the Stanley Cup perspective, that has to be one of the peaks of your career, but that was so far in the beginning that lots has happened since then. So when you think back to your time in Dallas, so what are some of your peak memories?
Well, I mean, we had we had a terrific group of people, and it wasn't without a lot of trials and tribulations. I mean, we were in Minnesota, and then our franchise moved down to Dallas, and we ended up with obviously you have a relocation, lots of new people that became part of our group with the Stars, and terrific people. We had an ownership change, not because Norm Green didn't want to be an owner. It's just that the finances of the NHL had changed so drastically that it required a different type of owner with respect to financial capital. But we had. Norm Green was really fantastic in understanding what the process was. Tom Hicks was just as much along the same lines that we had some years where it looked okay, and then we stumbled, and then it was kind of that 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, half a step back, but we found our way. And Bob Gainey, just such a terrific leader, and Jim Lights, who came to our team in Dallas from Detroit in 1993. I mean, he was instrumental in what we did off the ice, and Bob was instrumental in what we were doing on the ice. And together they worked fantastically together, and we were able to move our team in a direction where we were competitive and we were a good team. And obviously Ken Hitchcock came in and took it to championship caliber level. And those are things you never forget. But we had terrific people on the ice, off the ice. And I always say this, you can't be a team of character without people of character. And we had people that were passionate and determined and obviously very, very talented. All you got to do is just look at the number of Hall of Famers that were on that team, and we were pretty lucky. But when you do go back, it's something that's forever. I mean, we're all part of it. It's something that you'll never forget. You grow up wanting to win the Stanley Cup. Nobody ever thinks you're going to raise the Stanley Cup in a management position, but you always think of it as a player, right?
It's not how you dreamed it.
but we all dream of winning the Stanley Cup. So to be part of it was really, really significant. And certainly Eddie was a major reason why we were able to be so successful.
Do you ever get tired of hearing from Buffalo fans?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'll tell you what, because I'll share a story with you. I was at a tournament in Europe, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And there was a scout from Buffalo, and we were sitting around after a game and, just kind of kicking around. It was probably about dozen of us just kicking around post game, and he made a comment about that game and about the Stanley Cup. Now, he wasn't even working there at the time in 1999, but it was one of those comments that you just kind of go, yeah, whatever. Like, I kind of made a joke. I kind of said, well, you know what? All I know is if you look for the 99 Stanley Cup champions, it says Dallas, not Buffalo. Well, he didn't stop. He wouldn't stop. And so to answer your question, Chris, I said, you can go live in whatever land you want to live in. You can believe in Santa Claus. You can believe in the Easter Bunny. It's the same thing. Because if you think that, if you want to talk about the goal, keep talking about the goal. It was a good goal. We won and everything. And even if you won that game, or even it didn't matter. It was just a matter of when we were going to win, not if we were going to win. So your team was competitive. Your team was respected. But if you want to think that you were going to beat us, keep thinking it, because you had no chance.
And it was a stupid rule, too. So I'm glad they got rid of it right away.
Yeah, well, it was a rule that they clarified at the time. And, but you know what? When you have the history of losing that Buffalo has had in all their sports, you can understand that they're a little bit sensitive, probably, to losing every chance, wide left, wide right, 4 straight Super Bowls losing.
But in the crease, it just never ends for them. And that, to me, thinking back on it, growing up, I was probably, I think I was 9 years old. And as I mentioned, I was a new Stars fan at the time. That moment, that game sticks in my memory because it was the first time in that entire playoff run and hockey run I was able to stay up past the first overtime. My dad had a rule, I was still a young kid and, I still had, school to get to and whatever else or things to get to. So if the game went past the first overtime, I had to go to bed. So I'd find out the next day. Well, that game obviously went, whenever it did. And I remember that was the first game I was ever able to stay up late and watch. And it certainly turned out well. You talk about your scouting.
It went 3 overtimes, Brandon.
Was it 3? I don't even remember. I just remember.
It was 5 minutes left in the third overtime.
The elation of being a young kid. That was the first. And you know what? Since then, any team I've cheered for hasn't really been overly successful. So that was the last championship moment of my fandom. But you touched on your notes and your scouting. Now, a guy in your position, executive, analyst, scout, whatever, you have to take the good with the bad. And I'm sure that's something you've had to learn. So over the years, you've had, some really good drafts. And then on the other side, you had some decisions that probably come back to bite you later, but hindsight's 20/20. So for example, you draft Jarome Iginla, but on the other hand, you waived Marty St. Louis, who went on to become, what he did. So how long did it take you to realize, what, not every pick or not every choice you make is going to be a home run?
I'm sitting here thinking about that. I didn't think I made any mistakes, and now you're pointing out some of them. Like seriously,
as he hangs up.
It's
Goodbye.
Christmas time. I can't believe this. Yeah, well, you know what? I'll tell you a funny story about Marty St. Louis. So, I had taken the job in Calgary, but the stipulation behind me going to Calgary was I couldn't participate in anything with their franchise until our season was done. Our season ended in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final on a double overtime goal by Jason Arnott. So the year before, we're celebrating. The next year, not only are we incredibly disappointed, but I'm leaving an organization with great friends and a lot of fondness. So I go to Calgary, and I got less than 48 hours to try to get the expansion list and everything into order. And one person, you try to go through the list and you try to get everybody's input as best as you can. Tom Watt, former Winnipeg Jets coach, he was a player. He was a person that said, I think we should be. I think Marty St. Louis has a lot more than we've seen from him, and I think that we should be careful about just letting him go. And ultimately, his was the only voice that supported that. Now, I'm going to So we let him go. You know, he ends up signing as a free agent with Tampa Bay. We all know what ends up happening. 2004, Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup. Marty's well on his way to establishing himself as a top player in the National Hockey League. But the World Cup, right before the lockout of 04-05, I'm in the Bell Center in Montreal. And Steve Bejan, who played with us in Calgary, J.S. Giguère, who had been in Calgary, and Marty St. Louis and Denny Gauthier, who was still playing in Calgary, are down below, you know, because they were all together. They knew each other. So we're chatting, and Marty comes over, and, you know, Marty is very gracious. He goes, Craig, you know, it's not your fault, and blah, blah, blah. I said, Marty, if anybody should have known, it should have been me. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I watched you dominate in midget AAA in Quebec. I watched you go to the University of Vermont and dominate there and be one of the best players, if not the best player, in college hockey. I watched you at the American Hockey League level dominate and be a really good player. Just based on all of that dominance, I should have been the guy to do it, because I'd been watching you since you were 14, 15 years of age. He turns to me, he slaps me on the back. He goes, yeah, you should have known. So despite all that overwhelming evidence, I still, made the mistake. And, hey, Marty St. Louis is a terrific person. And, you think about it, he was 26 years of age before he really found his footing as a regular NHL player. And then there was no looking back for Marty. And, he's a coach now. He works with young players, and the insights and his experiences really help those players. But, listen, when you're looking at it, you talk about the good with the bad. I go back. I had some great role models and mentors. Bob Gainey. I mean, he was captain of the Montreal Canadiens. Growing up in that fishbowl, you have a bad game, they want to trade you out of there, right? It doesn't matter that you might have won 3 Stanley Cups in a row, right? It doesn't matter. And so, you watch how he handles it. I worked for Bobby Clark, captain of the Flyers, another fishbowl franchise, and when you work around people like that who are not only level-headed but have great experiences in dealing with the positives and the negatives, if you can't learn from that, then you're not going to learn. So, nobody tries to make a mistake. Everybody's trying to make the best decisions they possibly can. And sometimes, despite your best efforts, it doesn't turn out that way. And, and I think that you got to keep that in mind. And, the hardest thing, Brandon and Chris, is not for you to keep that in mind. It's your bosses to keep it in mind. Because, and it's even greater now because everybody's impatient, and there's so many people that know. A lot of experts without expertise, I like to call them.
Yeah, there's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, as they would say.
I am biting my tongue very hard right now, Craig. I am just going to nod and agree with you there. Why
are you biting your tongue? You don't have to bite your tongue.
It's a podcast. We're going to let loose. Craig, you're talking about the story with Marty during the lockout. When the lockout year hits, the World Juniors are a tournament that automatically become a lot more elevated because of all the potential players that get to play. This isn't a lockout year, but it's this weird year where a lot of these NHL players, of course, are going to get to play minus just a couple. Is there a potential that you would put this team up against the last dream team, that lockout team?
Well, so, there was a lockout team in 2013 that lost the tournament in Ufa. They didn't even get a medal. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had played a full year in the NHL and then a part of a season in the American Hockey League during that lockout because he was still minor league eligible. He led the tournament in scoring that year, and that was considered to be a dream team that didn't even medal. The reason I bring it up is in 2005, which is considered the best dream team, the best team of all time, they were unbelievable. But bringing up 2013, the reason I do that is in light of today happening with the World Junior. A lot more players are available. The competition is very different. 2013 to 2020, and significantly different than 2005. What I like to call the 5 hockey powers right now, the Czechs aren't in that group. They simply aren't. As much as they're fighting to get back into that conversation, they're not there. Finland, Sweden, Russia, USA, and Canada are there. And the competition for Canada to win gold at this year's tournament is going to be tremendous. Do I think that they can win gold? Yes. Do I think they will win gold? Yes, I do. But this team is as deep a roster as I've ever seen for Team Canada with respect to 20 first-round draft picks. Never happened before. 6 first-round draft picks were cut, and 1 who's certain to be a first-round pick, if not the first overall pick, Shane Wright. That's a depth of talent that's unprecedented for Team Canada. But Russia, USA, Sweden, and Finland, they're all good teams. I mean, the Russians are outstanding. And I'll be shocked if Russia and Canada are not playing on January 5th for the gold medal. To me, they have both those teams are built in a way that gives them, in my view, the best chance to win the gold medal. Sweden and Finland and USA are not going to be any type of pushover. So, this team, I can talk about the depth of it. It's going to be up to them to show where they stand as potentially a dream team or one of the best teams all time in the tournament because, the competition is that significant.
Canada, Russia, add another chapter.
Yeah. And Canada's forwards are so good. And 14 forwards and all first-round draft picks. Every single forward is a first-round draft pick. But they're going to get scoring all the way through their lineup because they have that ability to do that. But the Russians have such a fantastic defense. And we can talk about defense all we want, but if you don't have the right defense to handle an offensive juggernaut like Canada's going to throw at you, it doesn't matter. And the Russians have the right defense. Not only is their defense fantastic, it's the right defense. They're big, they're strong, they can skate, they're competitive, they're physical. And then if you get past those guys, you got to deal with the goaltender, Askarov. So I think it sets up it's never an easy path, but the path to the gold will be a lot different than the team in 2005, where they just basically obliterated the competition at every turn.
Well, Craig, before we let you go, I know you said you don't have a whole lot on the agenda because you can't really go anywhere, but you're in a bubble, and I thought, you know what, let's lighten it up. We've talked about a lot of hockey, but quarantine is different for everybody. You're settling in now. So Chris and I will hit you with a couple of rapid fire type questions for you. Something quick, something you might have to come up with off the top of your head just to kind of end this. And my first question for you is, what is going to be your go-to food delivery order while you're in your hotel room? Do you have a go-to place that you're getting delivered?
No, I'm not really familiar with Edmonton. I mean, I know, again, living in Calgary, you drive up to Edmonton. I usually don't stay over in Edmonton, right? So it's in and out, right? But Ryan Rishaug, who lives in Edmonton, he's going to be my go-to guy. Like, if depending on what I want to look for, I'm going to say, I'm looking for this tonight. I like all kinds of different food. So if I feel like a burger, I want a good burger. I don't just want a burger. So I'm going to turn to Ryan to give me his intel and his insights on those ones.
Well, I saw him and his son were doing push-ups on Twitter a few minutes ago. So I don't know if he'll be eating any burgers. He might be eating all sorts of protein shakes. Yeah,
well, I can only tell you this. I mean, that boomerang feature that works, I mean, you do one push-up and it makes you look like you're doing dozens. Just be careful with how the video is edited.
All right, Craig, you have been through a lot of junior rinks, watching players play throughout the WHL. What's one of your favorite rinks to watch a game in?
Well, I have so many favorite rinks right through the Western Hockey League, Brandon included, because you're not just going to a rink, you're going to a community. And, people that I know from management to coaches, and you just enjoy being able to go and visit with all the people. And then you see how the community embraces the team. And it doesn't matter if I'm in Brandon or Moose Jaw or Swift Current or Prince Albert or Lethbridge, or I'm over in Kelowna or Kamloops. I mean, that's the feeling that I get. It's an exciting feeling because, if the communities don't get behind their junior teams and support the kids, taking them into their homes, having them be part of their educational system, work where they can and give back to the community, it can't work. And you guys know this as well as anybody. So, when I talk about one rink over another, it's the communities, and every community is different and every community has its own history. But what I love the most is when I can go into a building and it's a rivalry game, and it's a game where you're excited and fans are excited about their team, and you're playing against somebody that's really, really good, and it's going to be a challenge, and everybody's jacked for it. And like I come into Brandon, and you come in on an afternoon, and you're there at 2:00. You check into the hotel, and everybody's, Regina's in town tonight. This is going to be a good one, right? And hopefully Winnipeg gets to that point with Brandon, and you can build the intraprovincial rivalry there. But when you have good teams playing against one another.
Sorry to interrupt. It started very quickly, Craig. Listen, in the one season, it did not take long. It took all of 15 seconds and a major penalty, and it was off and running for the entire season. So
but I certainly I don't doubt that. But when Winnipeg becomes a better team, right? And now it's not just about throwing your weight around or doing whatever you got to do. It's like they could beat us tonight.
And you don't want to lose.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's that feeling that says they could beat us tonight, right? And the coach is telling the players in the morning, you better be ready, right? So
and it's not like in the the early 2000s or the late 90s where if Regina was up 3-1 in Brandon, they would just throw Jordan Tutu over, or a couple of heavyweights to jump over the boards, and everyone would forget the score by the end of the night.
Hey, listen, one of my closest friends is Les Jackson, who was a coach and manager for the Brandon Wheat Kings for a number of years, and he coached Ron Hextall, and there was the manager when Hexy was playing there, and the stories of Ron Hextall, in the 80s, Brandon, long before you were born. I mean, the brawls they used to have, and the way the game was competitively and fiercely contested, it boiled right down to it. So it's very different now, but the competitive fires still run through the players when they see somebody close. But even more importantly, when that feeling of we could lose tonight, and I got to go into the community tomorrow, and I got to go to school on Monday.
Yeah.
That's an incentive.
Well, my last one for you, and this might be a tough one because there are a lot of them, but thinking back to maybe even when you were an executive, do you have a favorite former Wheat King that eventually either maybe peaked in junior or peaked at the World Juniors or went on to the NHL?
And you know what, Craig, hold on. I'm going to tag on to this. I'll even give you then an extra second to think about this rapid fire, because my question was going to be the same. We do not compare questions, but my phrasing was a little different because I was going to ask, have you seen the new jerseys that the team just released? Because our question online to our fans was, what former Wheat King would you want to see play one more game in a Wheat King jersey? So kind of a two-parter. Did you see them? Because the reception's been pretty positive. Personally, I'm so excited about seeing the Wheat back. But what player would you like Brandon said, if one player to come back and play a game?
I mean, you think about all the players that the Wheat Kings have gone through Brandon, through the Wheat Kings organ. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, you bring up Jordan Tutu. I talk about Ron Hextall. I mean, you go back. I mean, one of my dearest friends, the late Brad McCrimmon. I mean, I miss him every day. And the history of the Wheat Kings and the success they had. You think about Kelly. And I just talk about Kelly now, is that, he came into the Wheat Kings organization after his playing career and just steadily worked at building it, getting ownership of it piece by piece by piece, all the while, coaching at times, scouting, managing, and doing his MBA. If people knew the Kelly McCrimmon story, it's so impressive. And so when I think about Brandon, I think about so many different players that have come through there and have been so fantastic. So when you put my feet to the fire, so what you got to promise me though is you can't let Ray Ferraro see this, because Ray will get mad at me. He goes, "How could you not pick the 108 goals scored?" You know what I'm going to tell him? Because you wore Cooperalls, and the Cooperall look doesn't fly today. The kids today just like, why did you wear your pants when you played? Doesn't make any sense. I got to tell you, one of my favorite people, and as a player, the way he played the game and the way he handled himself and still does to this day, Wade Redden to me was, he embodied so much of what the Wheat Kings are about. Humble, damn good, knew he was good, but didn't hit you over the head with how good he was. And, the way he played the game was his personality. And, there wasn't a lot of flash and dare to him. There was just this incredible efficiency, the way he played. Honestly, if he was ever flustered, if his heart rate ever got up over 50, I think that would be the most intense he would be. And again, I don't want to leave out, Braden Schneider was a great Wheat King, I talk about Brad, and, obviously I didn't watch Brad play in junior, Hexie, what he did, Ferraro with 108 goals. But Wade Redden to me was, if I think about just a prairie kid playing for the Brandon Wheat Kings, I really do think about Wade Redden, who went on to have a terrific career in the NHL. And, but there's many in that regard. And just so you know, Chris, I'm going to ask you a question when we're done too, that, it's not going to be rapid fire, but I want you to think about it. And then if you can't come up with the answer, I'll give it to you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, Chris or Craig, my last one for you is a little away from hockey, but I think people see Craig Button on TV and they hear you talking about hockey all the time, but they don't really know Craig Button as a person. So you're sitting down in your hotel room and you flip on the TV or your Netflix or whatever. What show are you turning on to kill time in the background while you're riding on your bike? What's Craig Button's go-to show of choice?
Okay, two things. I can't watch TV when I exercise. I find it affects my I like to get focused in my workout, and I listen to music or I listen to a podcast. But TV, I can't even watch sports when I'm exercising. I just like it for some reason it affects me in a way that I don't feel totally comfortable. But when I love history. I really do. I love history. But comedy for me, good comedy. I don't know if you guys have watched Ted Lasso on Apple TV.
Excellent. Excellent.
And it's funny, but it's so down to earth. And I really, really like that. I love the Queen's Gambit. The chess story. I watched The Undoing. I was compelled to watch it. So I'm not watching just one thing. I love watching the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I think it's a brilliant comedy, and I seem to have moved away from movies. I don't know why to more of these series and whatnot. But if something gets my attention early on, it's going to have me all the way through. My wife has been watching The Crown for years, and so I watched this year with her, and now I find myself going back and trying to catch up on all the other years. So I guess that's the one that I would be telling you right now that I'm trying to catch up on now is The Crown from all the previous seasons.
Well, there you go. Well, Craig, hit Chris with your question, because now I'm curious. What do you got for him?
Okay, so we got the World Junior Hockey Tournament coming up here, okay? Who might be the most important Brandon Wheat King in the history of the World Junior Hockey Championship in terms of notoriety at the tournament?
Marty Murray.
Marty Murray.
Red Deer.
Nope.
Ooh.
Well, Jordan Tutu. I mean, Tutu's impact in terms of I remember the entire crowd doing the tutu, doing the whistles, but I think that Marty Murray. That would have
been my guess.
Yeah, I would say Marty Murray. Okay, so if not, then I would say Jordan Tutu.
Okay, nope. You want to take one more shot?
Yep. Wheat King, the biggest impact at the World Juniors.
For notoriety. Think.
Is it not Team Canada or is it just World Juniors? Because maybe
it's Team Canada.
It's Team Canada.
But think out of the box a little bit.
Oh boy, stumped by the master. I can't think. I'm just drawing a blank right now.
Bill Derlago. Do you know why?
Way before my time.
A little bit before my time as well, but why? I got to hear this.
Bill Derlago was a top player. I mean, he was an automatic for the World Junior team, but in 1978. But he broke his leg. Do you know who took his place?
No idea.
Wayne Gretzky. 16-year-old Wayne Gretzky.
Wow.
And led the tournament in scoring. So 14-year-old Craig Button, my dad was running Central Scouting at the time. On Christmas Day of 1977, we celebrated Christmas. He took me to the old Montreal Forum to watch the World Junior Championship, Canada versus the former Czechoslovakia. Gretzky had 5 points. He made a move in that game that I remember going back to the outdoor rinks and showing all my buddies and teammates and saying, we got to try this move. So, Marty was great. Marty Murray to me is, I'll tell you this story in a second, but Bill Derlago, you think if Bill Derlago doesn't break his leg, Wayne Gretzky doesn't get to the tournament. Led the tournament in scoring as a 16-year-old. Okay, and it's a bad awesome notoriety, right? But Billy was unbelievable, and there was a lot of debate about should Gretzky be on the team or not. He led the tournament in scoring.
Wow.
Now, you guys, awesome. You talk about Marty Murray. People have asked me this many a times. Who's the best leader you've ever been around? I've been around some terrific leaders. Marty Murray's amongst the very best. He was the captain of our St. John Flames team that won the Calder Trophy in 2001. I can tell you what, I've seen leaders as good as Marty, and the people that I've been around. I'm talking about my circle, who I've touched with respect to teams. Marty Murray's some might be as good, none better.
Oh, it's funny because Marty, he's always been so humble and so quiet about everything. Like it took us like 25 episodes to convince him to come on the podcast and talk about the glory days. And I know that even like Perry Bergson, the beat writer for the Brandon Sun, like when he calls Marty and wants to do a story, Marty's like, no, call someone else. Like, I've done this. I don't want to talk about it. Like, he's just so humble about it. And I think that's what makes me appreciate, what he did, is that he doesn't force it upon you, and you have to sometimes dig it out of him to get him to talk about it.
Unbelievable. Jim Playfer, who was our coach in St. John that year, if you ever want to get Jim could fill an hour of your podcast just talking about Marty Murray.
Well, the level of respect that the Wheat King fan base has for Marty Murray, when we're asking everybody to name what former Wheat King they want to see come back, all the usual suspects, but Marty's name is right up there amongst the tops. And it's funny that every time there's ever any kind of a coaching change, the fan base, the first thing on social media is Marty Murray. Yeah. Like they want him to come back and do that at some point as well. Everybody loves Marty.
Well, he's in Sioux Falls now, and maybe if Dave Lowry would have got his job before Marty ended up in Sioux Falls, maybe he would have been at the top of the list. But there's no. I mean, Marty, what he went and did and why not, and he's not. He wants to be the best coach he can possibly be, so he's going to prepare himself to be the best, right? And you know what, I don't have any question that if he wants to continue to move up the levels and ultimately coach in junior and in pro, that not only will he find his way there, he will do an exceptional job.
Well, Craig, we've taken plenty of your time. This was absolutely awesome.
I got to go run here. I got to go run from one corner of my room to the other corner of my room,
Just like a hamster. You just got a big wheel instead of the bike.
So do you have two beds in there? Like, have you pushed them together into like one giant bed, or how did it's California King?
Just one bed.
If there was two, you got to space them apart. You can just jump and hop and create more of a.
Oh yeah, do my plyometrics, right?
Yes, parkour.
Hey, I got a good little. I got my kettlebells here. I got bike. I got all kind. I got a skipping rope. I got my bands. I got.
You're gonna look like Dutchie by the time you're done.
Yeah. You're gonna give both those guys runs for their money.
Oh yeah, well, we sit here yesterday, you ask, not yesterday. I mean, when I came up to Edmonton, I've been home since March 13th, 277 days. And when I was leaving on Tuesday to come up to Edmonton, I said to my wife, you know what? We're used to traveling. We're used to me being away. Even at Christmas time, you got to leave a little bit earlier, depending on where the tournament is at. And I said, but 277 days. I never really thought it would be this long, but it has been this long. And we're going to get to the other side of this. And with the announcement of the Western Hockey League having to postpone, and I know that it creates a lot of stress and anxiety for the young players. And the only thing that my PSA here is, your futures are still right in front of you. Don't let the uncertainty of when you're going to play or what's going to happen in the next couple of months derail you. Focus your energies and efforts forward. And, we'll look back on this time as one where we all got through this together.
That's actually a pretty good message, not just for the junior players, but for all of the staff of the junior teams.
Yes,
as well.
absolutely, Chris.
The radio guys,
all of us to take that with, yes.
Well, it's part of our life, right? It's part of what we do. It's part of our rhythms. It's part of our patterns, and everybody around us that supports us, allow us to go and do those things. So, Chris, absolutely, that we all, because, nobody likes uncertainty. Like if somebody said, hey, you guys be ready, we might have a game this weekend. Well, what do you mean? Who are we playing? We don't know. So, that's where we find ourselves. But, definitely we're turning the corner. And I think you asked me about what rink I'm going to be, what rink I love going to. I'll tell you what, I have the appreciation I have to go into all the rinks and see the people that are so important to the game. I'll tell you what, this smile is not going to come off of my face for years. I can guarantee you that.
Your favorite rink is the next one. So there you go.
Awesome.
Well, Craig, appreciate you doing this. This was awesome. Best of luck. Enjoy the rest of the tournament. And if you get a chance and you're rubbing elbows with Braden Schneider, tell him that Crowe and Falko say good luck. And his dad did a real good job with the Christmas lights, despite the fact that I'm sure he wasn't happy about having to climb back up on the ladder.
Well, wait a second. He did a good job taking directions from Mrs. Schneider.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's be clear. Actually, here, Craig,
right? last week's episode, I was talking to our new head coach, Don McGilvery, about the story about Braden Schneider prior to the draft. Now, you have to dig into this because this might be worth a bit of a story. So I was talking to his dad, Kelly, in the summertime, and we were just chatting about whatever. And I said, well, who do you want to draft Braden? And he said, oh, Montreal. And I said, well, was that your favorite team as a kid or what? And he said, no, but Braden and I were redoing our deck one day. Him and Braden were at home alone, and they were tearing apart this old deck and putting it back together. And right when they started, Braden got a phone call, and it was a scout from Montreal wanting to talk to him. So Braden went into the house, and at that moment, Kelly stepped up onto the deck, fell through a rotten board, and was stuck in between two pieces of 2x4 and didn't want to interrupt Braden's phone call. So he stayed stuck and wedged between this broken old deck for about 40 minutes till Braden came out. So you'll have to look into that and find out the actual length of time, because I feel like that's a fishing story that's gone 10 minutes to 45. Who knows? It's a great story.
That's okay. Fishing stories are always good. It's the ones that can stretch it the furthest without. It's like an elastic band without breaking it, right? But if I see Mr. Schneider somewhere in the future, which I'm sure I will, I'll have to bring that up to him. Did you ever stand in one place for so long without moving?
because you didn't want to interrupt your son's phone call. He said he had bruises from his shoulders down to his ankles because the way he was pinned in the deck. So anyway, I thought that was a great story. But we'll let you go, Craig. Appreciate it. Best of luck and enjoy the tournament. I know you haven't been in a rink in a while, so enjoy it. And hopefully your prediction is right, and it's Canada Russia for the gold medal.
Yeah, that would be exciting. But in the meantime, all the best to you and your families and your loved ones and your friends, and all the best through these holiday days.
Our thanks to TSN's Craig Button. Again, that interview, it was recorded a few days ago, but while we stopped the intro to the extra, just so you know, Chad, with the emails, an email's already been sent about both of your guest suggestions. So keep those emails coming, qweeklyharvest@gmail.com. We would love to hear what you think about the show, any ideas for upcoming episodes, whatever it may be. Crowe, this is our last episode, of course, before Christmas. This is coming out on the Tuesday. Christmas coming up this Friday. What do you got going on with the family? What are you and Brandy doing?
Well, I'm, for those of you that have followed the pod, you know that I'm kind of I don't know what word I want to use, but I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. And I've been spending my off season working for an oil field company here in Verdun and working on a service rig out in the oil field. So I'm actually working right through till the 23rd, possibly even Christmas Eve. We got to get the job done. And then I'm off until January 4th. So probably we got a lot going on out here in the farm with, like I said, with the chickens and the dogs and everything else. So probably just hang out here and enjoy some of that Christmas baking and maybe some of that Christmas bacon I mentioned earlier, and just hang around, probably watch a few movies. And I've got a few projects I got to get done. I got to finish renovating the laundry room. And as you can see behind me, I meant to tell this story last week. So this is not the set from the first two seasons. I'm in a spare bedroom in my house. Doesn't have any jerseys or cool sports memorabilia because that room was taken over for a home gym. And as you can see, that was not my choice or I gave it the approval, but it was my wife's choice. So now my sports room that was the backdrop is now a gym. So I need to fix up this room that I'm in a little bit and make it a little more office-like, put up some shelves and that sort of thing. So a few projects, but nothing major. You can't go anywhere, can't do anything. But I know you got the boys, and probably underneath that tree we see over your shoulder, there's probably a pile of presents, and you'll probably have to do some assembly and some instruction reading over the next couple of weeks.
You know what? Yes, but not as much as previous years. There has been some that have been, like those classic tales that have taken hours and hours. But no, this year it's actually going to be a little bit simpler with just everything going on. But really looking forward to it. You know, especially when you get kids, Christmas just kind of takes on a whole new level. Yep. And you know, and with the ages again, like I got a 5 and a 12-year-old. Vastly different kind of experiences, but it's going to be Christmas, right? So yeah, it's going to be different, but I'm looking forward to it. I've taken the week off, so I'm going to be around doing a bunch of esports stuff for the team, but besides that, I plan on doing a lot of ice fishing with Jude and Briar and skating and fun times, and hopefully the weather cooperates. So that's going to be my week.
And you've got a chance to play Santa here right now and make someone's Christmas gift.
Of course I do. All right, let's play Santa. Let's give away this jersey. And the winner here is Lori Nesbitt. I assume. I mean, it's Nesbitt_Lori, but a great comment on Instagram. Lori Nesbitt says, Brad McCrimmon, a true quiet leader, played the game right at both ends of the rink, left us too early. Be great to see him lead the Wheaties out of the room on the ice again. Great captain on some great teams. Lori Nesbitt, you just won yourself the brand new Brandon Wheat King jersey.
Congratulations. That's gonna look sharp. I don't know if you're gonna want to wear it or if you're gonna want to be like me and put all my jerseys in frames. Yes. I don't know, but you're going to have to let the team know what you do with it. Send a social media post it, tag it, whatever. Let us know what you're doing with it. Are you wearing it on the backyard ring?
Right. And I should say, too, that they've won either a white or a black. So we got to also ask what color they're going to want to wear. Because, of course, new home and away jerseys. So only one lucky winner. But if anybody else wants to now buy their jersey, if they've been enter the contest and waiting, be like, well, wait, I might win one. Well, I'm sorry to break the bad news, but now you can go online to bwkstore.ca and you can pick yours up. They look so sharp. Everybody loves them. Pick out your favorite, the white or the black, the home or away. But those sharp New jerseys available for sale now. Crowe, have yourself a fantastic Christmas. Any final news or notes or you want to bring up?
I do, and it's more of a funny story. And I just thought of it. So when I was younger, my parents got me a Wheat King jersey that had like the muffin type logo, you know, like the wheat thing with the banner. And when I left Melfort, when I was working up there was a young boy who his dad worked in the newsroom and he was a big hockey fan and he was just starting minor hockey. And I didn't think I was ever going to be back in Brandon. And the jersey obviously didn't fit me anymore. So I gave it to him. Well, then a couple of years later, I get the job in Brandon and I'm going, man, I wish I still had that jersey. So for years, I've wanted to buy one, and I just never got around to it. So I go to the the sportsman's dinner one year, and my wife's in Florida, and she specifically told me, do not bid on anything at these auction at the sportsman's dinner. So I said, okay, I won't. But then I went and bid on something. So I bid on Michael Furlan's stick and frame, just trying to get the bidding going. Anyway, I won it for like $200 and some bucks. Yep. So I get this stick. It's a stick and it's got Furlan's autograph and whatever. It's in a Calgary Flames picture or whatever. And I'm walking out the door and Pete Gerlinger, my color guy, as we all know, he's been around a long time. He maybe have had a few too many Coors Lights. And he's got an Eric Fair wheat stock jersey with the wheat down the sleeves. Beautiful jersey. And he says to me, hey, Crowe, what'd you win? And I told him I got this Flames picture and stick. And he's a big Flames fan. So he goes, do you want to trade? And instantly I thought, I can't pass this up. So I said, yep. And I swapped him the jersey and I took off. About 3 days later, he didn't even remember swapping me out the jersey. So anyway, I got my jersey. Thanks, Pete. And thanks to Coors Light for getting me my first ever Brandon Wheat Kings jersey. But it's hanging in that office. It's going to have to be moved. I'll probably put it right over my shoulder here. But anyway, that's just a funny story about jerseys. But
fantastic.
Yeah.
Weekly Harvest brought to you by Coors Light, the official beer provider of the Brandon Wheat Kings. Crowe, have a very Merry Christmas, my friend. All the best to you and your family. And you know what? We're going to be talking, next weekend, recording for the podcast for next week anyway. So I guess we'll be talking the day after Boxing Day, which will, of course, be talking about Braden Schneider and Team Canada.
Getting things going. Looking forward to it. So Merry Christmas to you and the two boys, and enjoy it. Try and keep the noise down in that neighborhood after Christmas. I know that those toys and stuff, video games, they can make a lot of racket. So keep it down.
They're sitting right here, or else I would comment more on that. But yes.
All right. Merry Christmas, everyone.
All right. Take care. Talk to you again next week.
Be sure to follow Q Country and the Wheat Kings on Twitter and Facebook for all your Brandon Wheat Kings news. Thanks for listening to the Weekly Harvest.